Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago family. We are most fortunate again to have Mr. Vesi Ram with us here tonight, and we are going to be discussing the budget. As you know, Mr. C. Ram is very well uh, knowledgeable on finance and banking and economic development. And also we have Mr. Suman Singh here, who is another specialist in this environment. So we're going to start off with Mr. Siram. Mr. Siram, I want to welcome you back to the Yellows Eco Program USA. And if you can give us your views on the budget. I know a lot of people are excited about it. A lot of people are happy. They are jumping around and dancing around, that they have this budget. So I'd like to get your input on views on it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, and good evening to everyone. I think overall, I must compliment the Minister of Finance on what I would say, his confidence and enthusiasm. I thought it was very well delivered. Um, there were one or two mistakes in a 3 hour delivery, I think is more than acceptable. Um, Having heard part of the budget on television and having read the hard copy, usually the media brings out the hard copy the following morning. I didn't see it in the Guardian. I didn't see it in the Express. And when I thumbed Newsday, I found it there. So I was very happy for it because it gives you time to really look at the details of the budget and sort of tick off and put question marks and things like that. So I still have to study it in detail, but overall, I think the government looking to raise 55 billion in revenues and to spend 55 million revenues and expenditure 59 and a
Yes.
deficit of 3.8, and that's a standard presentation at the end of the day, what the numbers reflect as to what they're going to do in the budget. But very important, there are a few things that strike me. I thought the reduction in the super gas uh, price for super gas was brilliant. Um, I think nobody expected it, and whatever faults or criticism you have with the remainder of the budget, and you could probably pick one or two, but the point was that this was such a distraction that it was euphoric. And I think the population responded in a very positive manner. And I think even those who drink rum and smoke cigarette, I think they were also extremely happy. So, so it was a brilliant move in my mind, a brilliant. Um, Having said that, I think there were three other things that really struck me, which was so important, and hopefully the government will go through with it. One of it was transfer pricing. Now, I don't recall the exact numbers, but I think the Minister of Finance said we lost billions over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
If that be the case, we should be in a position with good legal advice to go and collect those funds with interest. With interest. It means to say that we were not paying attention to monitoring our contracts with the oil companies, and somebody has to be responsible for it. And if you go back in the figures, this is where you can always discover mistakes and recalculate the tax liability over the last 10 years and collect the full amount or negotiate some greater settlement. So I think the government has that opportunity, but I don't think it came out in the budget whether they were aware that they can, in fact, go after those taxes that were evaded, I believe, evaded somehow, um, and also go after the government uh, officials who were responsible for calculating those tax liability by the large multinationals oil industry. So I hope that once we have mentioned it here, I hope it gets back to them, and that's an area they ought to pursue with vigor, because we are dealing with a lot of money. I don't know if you recall a few couple of years ago when Prime Minister Rowley and Stuart Young went to Texas,
Mhm.
and they negotiated the gas and oil prices. I don't know who gave them the authority. That's another issue to surface and be dealt with. They have no authority to negotiate any price of gas and so on without proper consultation with consultants and advisors. But they having done that, I think the oil company said, look, take $1 billion and go back happy. You remember that?
Yes,
And
yes,
they
yes.
gave him a
Yeah,
billion
I
dollars.
also remember some kind of bogus company that didn't exist that they came up with that was it was using a hotel room as the address or something like that. I
Uh-huh.
gotta pull up the details, but
Yeah.
there was
Uh,
something. But Anand Ramlogan just won a
Yes,
case this evening
yes, I saw.
with forcing Dr. Rowley on transparency of the lawyers that he utilized in the Paria Diver situation. So
yes,
that's
yes.
something we will have to discuss later on in the week because we need time to look at it a little bit too.
I saw the details. Gary, is like $15.8 million expended in legal fees, and up to this day, the divers have not gotten a penny.
And not that is just one aspect of the chaotic disaster that they create with our treasury because there
Yes,
is so much
you
when they
know,
was reading this budget. I mean, he exposed quite a bit of the crookery involved there and a lack of transparency, and they were so bold faced with it. And up to now, they seem to be blatantly bold faced about
uh,
what it is like. Like they did no wrong, and we have to really expose this situation and keep at it. But go
well,
ahead, Mr. Siram.
Yes. So I think that those are areas they must pursue with vigor, and perhaps Anand and his team would have work for the rest of their lives. Because I think another area I think they should look at is the fraudulent misrepresentation by the board and management of Cal, because they have fooled the population for years saying they have operating profit, meaning per- conveying to the nation, conveying to the citizens that look, all is well with Cal, look at this operating profit. So if you have operating profit, why are you borrowing money to operate the company? And I'm glad the Honorable Prime Minister disclosed it even before the budget. He did
yes.
say Cal has been lying to them and holding them to ransom, that if Cal don't get certain money, they will close up. Cal has been closed up the most times perhaps in the history of the world, more times than any other company, starting with BV many years ago when it was
Mhm.
privatized to the gentleman from Panam. So
And the
I
guy
have
from
been
Texas.
following it. Sorry, go ahead.
I said the guy from Texas. He was the one who came in with a sweetener, and the company sold itself out to him, and
Yeah,
he just
he
went
raped the
bankrupt.
company. He raped
Yeah.
the company and left it dry, and they threw it back in
Mhm.
our hands.
Yep.
Another obscene arrangement was the purchase and merger with Jamaican Airlines.
Jamaica. Yes.
Whilst the PNM started it, when the UNC came to power, Dukaran finalized the deal. And I always make a joke. I said probably a mathematician put that together, where two negatives make a positive. So so we 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 the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago have carry the burden and the brunt and scandalous losses of Cal for too many years. In early 2000, I was working one of the lawyers, and we were working with the Pilot Association with regards to their pensions and transfer pensions and things like that, right? But what what occurred during that period when under the then CEO, Cal showed a profit of $2 million. When I investigated it, it was actually, so much you will understand, they sold one of the airplanes to Citibank. They sold it. If you sell, if you sell an airplane, if you sell an airplane, it has to come off your books. Am I right?
Asset reduction, yeah.
Right. So if somebody bought the airplane, it should be on their books.
Yes.
Am I right? But there was a side agreement. There was a side agreement where Citibank agreed to sell back the the aeroplane to Cal at the end of 3 years or 5 years or whatever. They sell it
Okay.
back to them at at a price that included interest. So it was a loan disguised as a sale and lease back of assets.
Lease
So
back.
I'm saying if we accept that foolish accounting in Trinidad, and it was well audited by I think one of the big firms, Price Waterhouse or so. So here it is. Cal has a history of misrepresenting their financials, and I think this gentleman who just left, he continued in that mode. So I think there's a lot to investigate in Cal, and maybe if you all know the CEO or the chairman, and give me an introduction, I could take it up from there. But you do
I
not.
think we have over 60 years of forensic investigation to do with the way that we see in, based on what we see in here now that's coming to light in the most recent days, is that since we took office, is that there are very questionable things that we need to really follow up, and just cannot just let it go. We need to retrieve money. I mean, right now, especially where we need the money so much, and our people is in such a desperate need, and the government has to find money. I mean, we need to retrieve a lot of money.
That
We
is
Yes.
need to go
correct.
after people.
If
That
I
is
may,
correct.
if I may add the situation, well, Carl, 60 million was allocated this year for audit purposes, and they over the past 9 years they have never done any external audit on the company.
Well, how I look at it, they're in breach of the law, and the government will say no more money until we get A, B, and C, and a strategic plan to turn it around.
Correct. I think so. That's the best. If you got to shut it down, and clean house,
That is
clean
correct. So,
house. Yes,
because the longer it stays running, the more the more they
losses.
require from the taxpayers, funding from the taxpayers, and quite frankly, the taxpayers do not have that level of wealth again. It's not there. It's not there. We are marginal. So all these things have to be cut, and I think that's an area I'm sure the government will be working on. The question of excess expenditure on things we don't need. We don't need so many um, embassies all over the world now with communications. Otherwise, so vastly improved. But let me go back to the two or three other things that really struck me apart from the decline in the decrease in the oil in the gas price. One is they did say that they're going to focus on transfer pricing. So that is something can bring about immediate results. One, by ensuring going forward that we get the right taxes with the right prices. And we don't have to have a local person doing that, We can have a world-class person, a retiree somewhere around the world willing to contribute to a developing nation, protecting a developing nation. There are many of those. We don't have
If
to
I,
look to Europe.
if I may butt in there with as you on this sensitive topic of taxes,
Yeah, yeah.
if that was ever done in the U.S., tax evasion is a federal offense as opposed to tax avoidance. I have that issue already dealt with. Some issue like that, tax avoidance, you can avoid tax, but tax evasion is a federal offense. So that means there are not only recovery of funds, there's punitive damages as well. So it could very well be two sets of monies we have to collect if that incident happened in the US per se.
when you
Right.
see the
So,
amount of people based on the structure, how they was operating, that the failure to collect seems to be, to me, I always think it's by design and no mistake, to tell you the truth.
Correct.
well,
I
that is
agree.
that. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree that it opens the door to a number of speculation. Whether monies were collected on the hand under the table, and they say, "You guys, you drilling company, do what you want," and so on. As you know, two couple of officials may have collected what they have to collect, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. It lends itself to speculation. And when no audit and so on is being done for these things, we don't know the details of these transactions. Anybody ever knew the details of the two fast ferry boats that Stuart Young and Rowley went to Australia to purchase? It was over $1 billion. Who? How can government officials on the whole do not purchase, do not analyze purchases? The
Mm-hmm.
last time that happened was in 1976, I think, when the government minister purchased the TriStar
Mm-hmm.
aeroplanes.
Mm-hmm.
Prior, they're not supposed to purchase anything. You are
But
No.
dealing with
I love the
consultants.
TriStar. That was the one. That was a beautiful jet to
Yeah,
travel in.
that was people, but those were the gas guzzlers by the
Yeah, in fact,
MD-83.
I didn't cross the U.S. border walking in on a boat. I came with a TriStar 500.
Me too. Me too. I came with a try survival, brother.
Okay. That
Yeah, and
your
yeah,
enjoyment don't exonerate the wrongdoing. Enjoy it while you
correct.
could.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But Samant, in Trinidad as well, tax evasion is a major issue, and here it is. We could be dealing with billions of dollars. It has to be
Hmm.
properly researched and
Yes.
have have I would say international advisors, not very expensive one, but somebody who wants to assist developing nations, and I think there are several around from to even developing other developing nations such as India, and they are brilliant minds to deal with this. So I think those things should quietly be started. I don't know if you recall, the Guyana government has put one of the large oil companies in court for some perhaps some similar things that we are suspecting here. So, these things have to be pursued because we are dealing with billions of dollars. The future of country has been stolen. The future of our country, our wealth has been stolen. So they have to look at it very seriously. And I think the Prime Minister has signaled that no stone will be left unturned. So, that's one area. Another area I was very impressed with, and I've been advocating for many years: get rid of, simplify our tax system, get rid of VAT. There's too many persons employed with calculating VAT, trying to recover VAT, trying to pay VAT. It's a mess. I don't know who discovered that. In my view, a very foolish system, and obviously it was designed to expand the civil service. Um, but at the end of the day, it produces nothing for anyone, because if government has about 7 billion TT dollars in VAT refund, um,
Hmm.
just imagine if that alone is released, then we have a very prosperous country for the next 12 months with the release of that. So, but I think moving to sales tax, I think, in my view, in my view, VAT is collected from the vatable entities are much less than when you go down to sales tax. They are all over the place. And my view with regards to taxes, that you catch a chicken when it's in the coop, not when you let it go. So where is the best place to collect taxes is at the port in terms of duty. So
Hmm.
I would have recommended, at least they're on the right track. I would have recommended no sales tax and no VAT collected at the point of entry into Trinidad, because our propensity to import, we already know with regards to food, is about 94%.
If
So
I
where
may
does that
butt in here, Wade,
go?
that
Please.
is exactly the system is St. Martin.
Which
There
is
St. Martin. They collect the tax at the port when the containers come in, and that's it.
that's it. Thank you very
That's
much.
it.
Thank you very
Simple
much.
one. Yeah.
I'm not a tax expert, but you apply logic to these things. And government now, you get rid of VAT, that's a 15%, put it on the duty. You get rid of sales tax, that's another what, 12%. I don't know what they intend. You could also put that at the duty level. Now the beauty about it, Sumant, and you could let me know, is that when the government now want to have relief on basic items, you can have zero duty,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So you're
Correct.
controlling now. You're controlling how you protecting the poor in Trinidad at that point. At those
Yeah.
points, we have the airport and the seaport. You collect all your VAT at that point. What it also does, it encourages local production because they're VAT free, they're tax free. So it encourage local production, and I think this was the point made by the Minister of Planning. If they slap on so much taxes on imported rum and alcohol and so on, he said go and drink local wine, and he has a point there. But
Yeah.
you don't expect everybody to run to local wine now. There has to be a fantastic marketing drive
Yeah.
to promote the local products, as they have done in Uttar Pradesh, where the government said, "I will help you all become internationally compliant in terms of quality, in terms of marketing material, and help you export." So we need we whilst the minister made a point which I think that's I would say a start to a major solution. We need to go further and
For
assist
sure.
the local producers because when you're marketing a beverage, the beverage could taste as bad as possible. Forgive me for saying when they introduced Dr Pepper in Trinidad, right? So it could be as bad as possible, not liked at all, but marketing makes it desirable. Marketing makes it desirable. So that is where the government can come in and assist. So I think there's tremendous potential there. But coming back to the point, and this is where we have to revamp the tax system to make it at the point. And if St. Martin, other countries have done it. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But it's such a simple idea. But sometimes politicians and they don't like simple ideas.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Simple ideas are not on the textbook, it's not on the table. They want something so complicated that when they go out to the population and use some big words like REIT, REIT, who knows what is REIT, right?
Real
Uh,
estate
uh,
investment trust.
yeah, and I think this is where education is required to simplify all this complicated investment bank jargon into exactly what is being proposed, right? The other major points. So I covered VAT. I covered the transfer pricing. Those two things I thought was very very important. Um, they brought in they said okay you could import cars and trucks and whatever up to 6 and 7 years. Now I didn't see in the budget. I may have missed it. I didn't hear. I didn't hear all of it on television, but I didn't see a special area to deal with the foreign exchange problem. I don't know if you came across it, Suman,
No, I
with
didn't see
regard to
that.
the foreign
I
exchange,
didn't see
right?
that. No.
Anyway, the,
Yeah.
the third other point which I found was very good, and I think they've simplified it. Slap on a 1/4% on the banks and the insurance companies, 1/4% on the assets,
Correct.
1/4% on the assets. I thought that
That,
was a simple way, so there's no mystery about calculations then, and that might bring them about. I don't know. I didn't certainly more than five or maybe $1 billion in taxes and revenues. So I thought those 3 points were very potent. Apart from the gas reduction, so that's 4 points in my books were very very potent. And all I can
Yes.
do is to wish them good luck on this budget. And as they go along, um, just implement the major items that they promise. I think with the 10% for the civil servants and so on, okay, that's a done deal. So that's out of the way. It's just a question of finding the finance going forward. And I think it was good that they identified certain sources of revenue sources of taxes. Um, Ultimately, in any free enterprise democratic system, um, all the burden, all the layers of taxes and so on falls on the backs of the poor consumers. You can't get
Mm.
away. You cannot get away from that. So that's a fact. But the point is readjusting it to such an extent that some of the wealthy also carries the burden. And I think that was the theme of the budget, which I think they ought to be congratulated for. And let's look for the best over the next 12 months. Landlords paying taxes on rental property. That's already in the tax regime. There's nothing new. It's just a question of implementation. Um, so let me stop there for now. And
Yes, if I may come in now, wait, I concurred and agreed with all what you're saying. I observed the same things as well. There are a couple of little things here that I can add. Um, the the budget itself, I like to peg a budget on the deliverables, on the outcome
Mhm.
of projects. Example, um, we know what the budget is, income and expenditure is a projection. It's
Correct,
not a cast in stone.
correct,
Right.
correct.
Now, if that is a projection, now remember budget in the government budgeting, as we know, is, it follows a pattern. It's a part of it goes to recurrent expenditure, which is really salaries and wages and so on,
Mhm.
maintenance and what have you. And part of it is what's called PSIP, Public Sector
Yes,
Investment Program, which is
yes.
the development side of it. Now, we have, the development plan for TNT, right? That has to be elaborated more. Is it the manifesto, or sorry, is it the manifestos which were merged and form the manifesto? Is that the medium-term development plan? And
Mhm.
if it is, from what I understand, it is. All the manifestos were combined to make the manifesto, which later
Mhm.
became the development plan for TNT. Now,
Correct.
when you have a part of the budget, which I said is PSIP, which is the development side of the budget,
Mhm.
that has to be pegged on what's called the growth poles, which were identified by
Mhm.
UNC as part of the deliverables. That's why I say I want to see the tying between the budget and what is the outcome of it.
Mhm.
And that is what is going to give the UNC leverage going forward. In that, if you take 2 or 3 of the 15 projects or so which they have identified, and you can start to set that in motion during this current year, and every year you do another 3. By the time 5 years is up, you can say, well, you know what, we have completed
Mhm.
80% of it, like that. It has to be measurable. And that is
Mhm.
what makes budgeting tied to outcomes. And this is an innovative way. In a private company, this is what they see. When you ask for money in a private corporation, you say, I have to say, what is your KPI? What is your outcomes?
That's
What
correct.
is
That's
what
correct.
are the metrics you're going to use and measure to make sure
Mhm.
I get that outcome for you? Hey, I want to make $500 million over 4 years. It means you
Mhm.
divide 500 million over 4, and you set your goals every year to achieve what
Mhm.
you have to achieve. I didn't see that too much. I saw a little bit of it as it pertains to health, where they wanted to build some of the cat labs, you know, a little bit of it.
There's two things that caught my interest here, and I think that Suman and Uvaid and some others can be on. Is they talk about establishment of a financial oversight appropriation committee, and then we have an establishment of economic resilience
I saw
council.
that.
These
I
are
saw
two
that.
things. These are two
Yeah.
things I think you guys can play a major role in participating with that. So we will have to look more into that.
But you know what, Gary? P&M had the same thing. They had an economic committee headed by Dr. Farrell, Terence Farrell, and
Who are that?
P&M Rowley had established an
Okay.
economic committee headed by Dr. Farrell. And when Dr.
And
Farrell,
accomplish what? And accomplish what? Raid the treasury?
no,
No.
that's what I'm saying. They did. He submitted a good report. I read it as with a pinty comb, and it was really good report. But that would have gone against P&M policies. So you said, you know what? Let's crush that committee. There was sound recommendations which made economic consideration, but those don't give you political mileage. So P&M in all that best interest decided to slap that project down, and all of a sudden the economic board failed to exist thereafter.
We know that was more relevant than anything to help anybody, because they were there to help themselves and beat down anybody that that tried to help the country or ask for accountability. So they played a lot of hoop. Nobody could ask him a question, especially this non-disclosure thing that Anand just put some licks on him for. So I want to congratulate our former Attorney General and Senior Counsel Anand Ramlogan on another 6. He's another 6 there.
Yeah. Again, continuing a little bit. One thing I was very, very pleased about is the utilization of the DB campus, which I saw.
Mm-hmm.
They decided, the Honorable Prime Minister insisted that the law faculty will remain the cornerstone of that campus, which was, when it was built, that was conceived that it's going to be the law faculty there. But I saw where she added forensics as well, and my baby, AI and technology. And those were, Gary, I don't know if you remember, we recommended those two things, that it can be used and should be.
You mean if I can remember? We beat that here so many times.
That these, to make.
So the Prime Minister is listening to us.
So,
you might not think it, but we are being listened to, because a lot of things that we made previously on the show and even off the show too was taken, very much into consideration. And I mean, because I see it in taking, putting into play. So I know that our Prime Minister is listening to us, and I mean,
so those are very good. That shows a nice forward-thinking approach. I mean, forensics can help the crime situation and so on big time, as well as AI and technology will foster a new age in education in Trinidad and Tobago.
But my position on crime, right? My position on crime is more for I see Dr. Ashford coming in here. Yeah. So welcome, Doc. You need to come in fully. Yeah. Yes. So my position on crime is more on the preventable. I am more interested in the preventable of crime than solving crime. So a higher priority should be with the deterrence and the effective response. And dealing with the management of the police force. I mean, with a little development in a couple days, we have much work to do. So we need much work and less big talk.
Right, that's correct. And but see where they say they're going to incorporate a lot more technology into the crime fighting, which is
Yeah, but but
again,
beside that, the technology and the talking technology and technology, yes, well, that's well and good, but I need something seriously done with how the police force is managed, and the integrity of the police force, effectiveness of the police force. These are some things that I need to see, really materialize. Because as much as they go out there and project, you're still seeing quite a bit of things happening that really has a lot of questions to be answered.
but if I may quote Dr. Maharaj, always go after this. He said they need to be on the beat and have everybody, a lot of these superintendents, and not
Yeah, they have to supervise the force. They have to
Go
be supervising the force, and they have to give account.
on patrols, man. That is what, be in the criminal phase in all the time.
Look, I say only Jesus Christ can resurrect the dead. All right, so we need to work harder on the prevention, because none of us are capable of doing that. Until we can raise the dead, then it's a different thing. But in the meantime, we need to focus on preventing people from being dead.
Right. So those are my other, plus points in the budget. I think it was well presented. I think over all these years, it was one of the better budgets I had the opportunity to listen into. It addressed the issues. I think it was more people-centered than previous budgets, in that even the price of gas, a lot of people, they felt that was a good move, and they mentioned that upfront. So it kind of took some of the steam, or the expectations and so on of the other passes, which may not have been too pleasant, but that was good. It set the tone, and especially the aspects of health coming in, and a lot of emphasis on education, the day campus thing. The
upgrade on the quality of medicine in that CDAP program there, because there's a lot of issues with the quality of medication,
and that was already approved. So the new list of medication has been listed out, and especially for the chronic disease side, they have been published as well.
So, Dr. Mara, jump in whenever you're ready.
I'm listening to him. Sorry. Long time I didn't hear you guys, so I'm glad to hear you. I'm enjoying what you all are saying. I'm listening.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Dr. Maharaj.
How are you guys?
Yeah, well,
I'm good.
Yeah.
Recap a little bit on the budget and what we found positive, negative, and otherwise. So that's the discussion tonight.
Yeah. These
Gary,
are
one thing
sorry, go ahead.
One of the little thing I was surprised. I saw the Ministry of Agriculture. I think they got 1.3 billion. I think that's a bit on the low side. I think, because I think agriculture would have been a higher priority for me going forward.
Yeah, but you know what I'm concerned about? Even though that might be on the low side, I was happy to see the Ministry of Works get a good budget and local government get a good budget, because this will help the agricultural sector by dealing with the flood mitigation issue. So we need to, I think agriculture could get much more money later on. But what I'm saying to you is we need to deal with this infrastructure issue immediately. So Ministry of Works needs some serious funding. Local government needs some serious funding and equipment.
Yeah.
I guess Gary get cut off. But Doc, anything you want to add?
Yeah, very interesting that the I listened to the budget yesterday, and I wanted to hear everything, which I did. And when you used to listen to Eric William, and those of you who may be around that time, he used to go on this tirade like 3 hours and 15 minutes, and he would sleep and wake up and sleep and wake up, and then he's going to get down in the end about what the fiscal side, the budget, the balance, whatever budget he has, the numbers. So you'll go through all of this punishment till you get to the numbers in the end. We observed that the last finance minister from the PNM did very much the same thing, but just he was more boring. He used to tell you all kinds of stuff about what happened in Japan and what happened in Australia or what happened in Fiji, and he's going on and on and on and on and on, and people sleep over and so yawning, and the guy would, and they're so bored. Not this guy. This guy you all presented yesterday. I mean, Robinson was kind of good when he presented his first budget, but Robinson didn't stay so long, like what, an hour and a half maybe for the most, if so much. But I was surprised that Devin Granato, that his name I think is. That he held his own for so long, and he didn't have, nobody was yawning and everybody was clapping to the end. Everybody was alert listening to what is happening because he was holding the interest. And I wrote and yesterday, and I said that he lived up beyond expectation, above expectation after the presentation. And I know that I would have a different view from a lot of guys from the University of the West Indies, including Ved, maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's my first point. I really tell you, he held it well, he did well, he presented well. He didn't talk about all kind of all about the world, he gone over, he didn't do those kinds of nonsense. To pack the time with pretty principle. He didn't pack in the 3 hours because he wanted to use up his 3 hours, but he was entertaining. He was full of information. I'm saying so from a very unbiased point of view because I am critical of the UNC, as you all know. I'm critical, but I'm very helpful. My critical is positive criticism to help rather than to bring down. So it all in all, the guy was 3 hours well spent from all sides. The guy, even from the opposition, they should have, I don't know what they were doing, but they should have absorbed what was going on because the guy was laying it, telling you like it is. And if it sounds like a speech, like I think the opposition is saying it's part of the campaigning, you're right. A budget is a campaign speech. What the hell do you think it is? And the thing about it is that they were laying the groundwork for the other budgets to come. So my first point about which is maybe different, I don't know, I didn't hear everything Bed said, but and I heard a little bit of what Sumant was saying. But my first point is that, like I criticized the PNM for setting the oil price a little too high. In fact, it was a big too high when it came because they set it at 70 something, and it never even reached 70 during their term. So they had the tag, and I'm against. I guess that's the best they could do, all of them. But I'm against them trying to tag the budget against a barrel of oil or BTU of gas when they're trying to move away from these kinds of measurements and move on to a new horizon where you diversify into other areas, and therefore I'm making this point because I noticed Kevin Ramnarayan said once that you couldn't depend on the oil anymore as you used to before. Therefore, the time for you to be saying things about depending on the oil has gone. You cannot depend on oil anymore. The time to think about not depending on oil is when you have oil. Because you use the oil to transition from oil into non-oil. You cannot transition when you're in a poor condition like now, like where you barrel oil, you have low production and you have low prices and you want to transition. because what you're really actually doing, you're transitioning when you can't afford it. You have to transition when you could afford it. And notice how the Guyanese are doing it. They are doing a little different to the Trinidadian. They are really saying, you know what, we have the money, let's diversify even further. And so they kept on processing agriculture. They kept on doing what they're doing and even adding more. Not like Trinidad people who say more oil, no money, no problem. We'll do crazy things will happen, and we'll just have a good time and then live it up. So they peg the budget at $73.45 or some sense or the other.
Mm-hmm.
All the data is pointing to a lower price. I mean, they're talking about they're using some kind of weighted average from all over the world. I've looked at many averages, and I don't think anybody using 73. But I perhaps they have better information than we, so we go along with the 23. And here's the other thing: if you're budgeting at 23, and you said that since so I think it was since May that they have a 3,000 barrel per day increase, and the BTU also with the gas production they have another 0.21 billion increase since they took office. Then it's quite possible that even though the price of gas remained below 70, they could balance the budget in the end, or at least stick to the target. And so that in mind, I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think, and that is all I'm saying. That even though I hope the PNF will take this and they'll go negative on it, because I mean that's what they're there for. But really, I would say that this budget has like everything for everybody, but it's missing a few things. Like I would have liked to hear a little bit more. I know it couldn't say everything, but I would like to hear about the oil refinery. They didn't say anything about what I've been waiting to hear something on that. But I think they're working on it. Like I find it taking too long, but you all said that that's enough time for it. So I say I go along with that too. The other thing is they have done away with the URP and the ULF or whatever they call it, CPEP. But they replace it with something, I think she's calling it an unemployment make work or some kind of name like that they give it. So it is not going away as such, but it's under a different name, like some kind of make work program. But you know, that they'll have to deal with that in a more substantive way, because I mean the PNI will hold them to that, and they'll have a few people who would say that but if they replace it with something else and something more meaningful, which I think that's their intention, that's all well and good, all fine. So they one thing, I don't know if Ved picked this up, but they talked about the exempt bank, and the kind of regular, whatever the problem with the exempt bank, like they deal with it. I don't know what the issues are. I'm sure it's political more than anything else. But they talked about the levy, and this is an important thing because I never heard this any time before anybody tried this. But a levy on the bank assets and a levy on insurance assets. That's an interesting way to reining or to raise some, add some, although it's not raising much. I think it says 500 and something million. It's not a billion, it's some half a billion or so that will raise from this levy, which I've never heard of in all my readings. I know what a levy is. I know what I know what capital gains and capital losses are. I know about those kinds of things. But what I don't know is, how do you levy on a bank that whose assets are already loans? I mean, you could do it. All you could do is look at the balance sheet and see the total assets and put out what I think they said, a 0.25% or half, whatever a percent on it. I think it's a very low percentage. So you have to do that for all. There are some 20-something insurance companies, and there are some 10 or 11, 12, 1,000 banks or so. That's not hard to look at, because you don't have thousands of banks like you have in America and those places. So I guess that levying that they're doing might raise some funds, and it's a nice way, because I remember Brett talking some time before about how the bank is sitting on all these foreign exchange and they're not doing it. and they should do something but put a levy on the sitting on the forest, put a levy in it so they can bring it out, put a charge on it, so they will put it in the open and bring out so that they can reinvest in the society, because they don't want to face that charge or whatever percentage. So I think along that line, when they were saying this kind of thing, I think about what Ben was saying before about having that penalty for people not for the hoarding. I think that was a bad term. Hoarding the foreign exchange. So I am prepared to look at it a little differently, because you know, I don't know how many gasoline that use premium. I guess there's a lot of them for it to be doing that with the premium gas and not the other gas, not even gasoline. There's a time when I know that gasoline was much cheaper. So everybody used to go to gasoline. It must have changed by now. So I you know, I think somebody was, I think I hear somebody, you all talk about the VAT before, I think. Did I hear you right? Somebody mentioned the VAT situation.
Yeah, they're going to be working on that, changing it a bit. I just want to welcome Ken Dalchan. This is our civil engineer who's helping us quite on a bit of infrastructure project. He went up to Toco Sandy Grande to meet with the Borough Corporation. He's meeting with the farmers and trying to assist with the flood mitigation. So he's going to be helping us quite a bit also in Shogunus West and other places where our help is accepted. But I just want to welcome our civil engineer, Ken Dalchan. How are you doing, Ken?
Hey, good night, Gary. Thank you very much. And thank you all. Yes, as Gary mentioned, right now we're focusing on Toco Sandy Grande, and there's some issues there with the flooding. I didn't get an opportunity to go through the budget in detail, but what caught my attention was the allocation for the flooding and the studies.
Exactly. Wonderful. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Gary, as we mentioned previously, right, I believe that this is the start of a new trend, right? And we're going to make a lot of progress, because these catchments, they have to be studied. You just cannot go and start designing something, some kind of hydraulic structure, without understanding your flows or collecting good, clean data. So yeah, so that allocation for the flooding in the budget, that to me is a big plus there. As I said, I didn't go through the entire budget in detail, but once I get there, I'll have more to say about other aspects of it. But as a civil engineer, flooding, that's my forte. And Gary, as you probably, as I mentioned to you, I did a flood mitigation design. In fact, 2 industrial designs I implemented in Bamboo number 3 in 2013 and 2014 under the UNC government. And they were successfully implemented to solve 2 difficult problems there. So we're looking to now scale up those designs and implement it throughout. Now, I met with the farmers' representatives for Toco Sandy, I think it's the Oropun de La Vega, that area. And they seem to have some serious problems there with a lot of moving parts, so to speak. There's the issue with the Oroput River as it outfalls into the ocean. There's a problem there, right, with clogging, sedimentation. There's an issue with excessive amount of silt. There's backflow. So this is something we have to look at from a holistic perspective to start to really solve these problems. And it's going to take a lot more in terms of financial resources, because climate change is still evolving and it's going to get worse. And when we talk about food security and so forth, we have to really step it up and get serious. And again, I like what I saw in the budget there with flooding. That's a first great big step. And I'm here as part of the team as a civil engineer. We're looking at other things in Shogunus West with traffic congestion and so forth. So we're going to be having many, many more conversations down the road.
Yes, Ken, I like, that's one thing that caught my eye right away. I was looking for in seeing in the budget. And I know we need extra backhoes in the corporation. I think, you know better than me, but as far as I can see, I think we have some very controllable flooding issues that we can manage and reduce the level and amount of flooding. And if we go in and, I like to sing this song, if we go into create mass food production, then we need to work on dealing with these infrastructural issue immediately, so that people, all their hard work does not flush down, into the ocean. I mean, it's not nice to see this. No, because I understand how hard it is that people work to get these produce, going, and then to see something that very controllable, we could have avoided. I mean, we are dealing with global warming weather conditions. It's something I like to sing and get everybody to understand, that we're getting a more larger amount of rainfall. So you whatever drain you have to expand this holding capacity. And what I've asked Ken to do is to help us to design how we manage the excessive water. How we have to create extra water retention. We have to create dams and dredge the holding capacity, expand those retention, create retention pond where we can, where we have the land space, and redirect the water into a holding area where WASA can eventually tap into. So we have to do some connection where they can pull from one retention to the other retention into the reserves, so where we needed to go. But this is work down the line. But I know, Ken, you're very capable of putting all of that together, what we are speaking about, and I know in time you will put this together for us.
Right, Gary, and what you just mentioned is something called the Muskingum method. It was developed by the Army Corps of Civil Engineers. Basically, it's a technique used to route your river, basically, right? And as you mentioned, with climate change here, we are experiencing more and more intense rainfall, and our catchment, our watersheds cannot handle this amount of rainfall. I mean, you guys have heard of the 100-year storm, the 1,000-year storms, right? We have to start to collect data to understand these frequencies, and try to extrapolate and see exactly what these catchments can handle and what we would need to store. And what we need to store would involve, would reflect our spending, our allocations, because we're talking about mass structures here, right? Climate change is not a simple fix. Like we just go in and just dredge a river. That's routine maintenance. And yes, Gary, we will need extra backhoes, extra equipment and stuff to extra resources, right? But that's the routine maintenance. However, the engineering designs is where we have to study these storms and see what we are going to store, what we're going to convey. So the whole philosophy is we store the 25-year storm and we convey the 100, right? Easy said than done, and that is going to require a lot of resources from all sides. So I hope to work and reach out to WASA to get some data from them, the drainage division, and see what I could pull together and how we could take this and start to move forward with it. The farmers mentioned to me that there's a lot of backflow from the Oroput River, right? And they mentioned 9 different tributaries that connects. So right away we could look at that backflow, and we could implement some short-term high-impact solutions there, right? Something which I've done in Bamboo number 3, and we could scale that. But yeah, it is doable. It is going to require a lot of resources, and everyone working as a well-seasoned team.
Yeah, definitely can. Like I said, we have to. The budget is encouraging to know that the funding will be there, and how we manage it, and we can build from there on. With that. But like what I'm seeing is very controllable flooding issues.
Yeah. Gary, could I interject a bit?
Please jump in. Please jump.
Well, first of all, I want to assure Dr. Maharaj that I think Sumant as well shared your view about the quality of Devendra's presentation. So I think I was impressed that he stood up on his feet 3 hours and delivered, I think, a high quality.
I texted him yesterday when the budget, and I got a reply about
in comparison to Inbut's 5-hour budget that made no.
My comment was the best budget I've heard. I've been listening to the budget over 50 years.
Yes,
and this was the first one that lended some essence on it. I mentioned the part which I said that was missing. Apparently, it was, just didn't do it or whatever. But I like to measure, again, Dr. Maharaj, budgets has to be measured against outcomes. That part was missing. The only part, some semblance of it was done. I saw, as I said, in the health sector. They spoke about the cat lab, so that was an outcome which was in the manifesto. They spoke about the re-evaluation of the medications under the CDAP. That was done as well. So, I mean, it started. So I'll give him some credit there. Some of the other main projects, the development projects identified in the manifesto, I think they should have started 1 or 2 this year and go incrementally add on some of these other projects in subsequent years going forward. So,
Yeah.
So the other point.
Yeah, let me just tell Ken something that and Gary, you all should because the minister involved in charge of infrastructure and your local government minister, they might speak on the budget and they might lay out what their priorities are and to what extent, Ken, you are doing, and to what extent they're going to cover what you're doing or what they're not going to, what they're not covering, what you're expecting. But they are going to make a presentation, and that will go to the details or perhaps cover what you all want to see achieved, Gary and yourself. And so if perhaps it is not too late to reach out to one of them and find out whether your project is being covered or what you're interested in or what you're working on.
But what I do is I do feed them as Ken sends me some recommendation. I send it to them right away, so I don't hold back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
they are also part of the group chat. So I mean, if they have time to look, but I also do forward it. So when he makes a recommendation, it goes right up, within seconds.
Well, right now
they might be covering what Ken is talking about, or they may not. But that they will spell that out for you. The budget only give as all of you are saying. The budget give you a kind of roadmap, but the details to be worked out later on. Each minister will.
We will see that definitely. Yeah,
and then you'll get a great feel of what is happening. But I would just want to say one thing. I would talk about the having the international perspective, and I think that the world might be in a recession maybe in the next 12 months. So I don't know, the budget will not factor that into as yet. And there's no certainty about nothing in the world. But I'm saying that there will be, and I noticed that the minister didn't say anything about that. And if there's a recession, things are going to come, things are going to be different. And then there's always something playing out in the open that could upset some of the things, some of the agreements that are happening in the Caribbean waters that could change things going forward. And finally, I would like to also ask any one of you who want to venture to tell me, do you think or do you believe there'll be a midterm budget? I hope not, but maybe there will. What do you think? Since you guys are much on it than I am, do you think they'll come for a midterm review and ask for money, or what? What's your best bet? Your big crystal ball.
Well, that always happen anyway, right? But go ahead, gentlemen.
Just to,
with regard, sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Just to add to what the gentleman just mentioned there, with regards to a global recession, we don't know exactly what's happening, but what I'm seeing is lately is that gold, that old traditional store of value, has been hitting historic highs. So
Yes.
someone knows something, and we've seen a shift. I know Bitcoin has pulled back a lot, and some of that money is moving into gold, right?
Mhm.
But let's see what happens. All of the indexes are at a high, 52-week high. Should I say historic highs? So again, I hope that we continue to see some stability and peace. As we saw in the Middle East, there with the release of the hostage and so forth. In our backyard with Venezuela, we don't know what's going to happen there, right? God alone knows what Trump is thinking up or has up his sleeves, So we have to stay proactive and be ready. And I think moving forward, as an engineer, when we do something, we look at value for money, right? I mean, revenue is tight, so we have to return value for money. And when I design something, I want to ensure that it equal or exceed the desired intent. So yeah, so again, I'm happy to be on board here with Gary. We're doing a lot of stuff in the background. I think Gary, Chaguanas West, we're looking at traffic congestion there, and we're going to be doing some proposals, right?
Right.
I should have something in about 2 weeks with regard to that. And I'm going to be holding a meeting with the farmers. I reassure them that we're there for them. In fact, these three farmers representatives, they actually represent about close to about 120 farmers in that area, you know.
Right. Yes. So this is what I asked them to do is to contact everybody, you know, in their vicinity, and then you come, you know, because not everybody have internet because they live in such a remote area.
Well, Gary, you know what? I'm sorry to interject, but you know what? I have all of them on WhatsApp. I've been checking their numbers, and they are on WhatsApp. So there's an old saying, out of sight, out of mind. So I want to keep in contact with them. I told them if there's a rainstorm or some event, flooding event, call me up. Video, you know, you know, with the technology now, we could do a video chat. I can see what's going on, right? So I want them to know that, I want to reassure them that we are there for them, and we are working on it. We're going to be implementing solutions, long-term, short-term solutions, right? But we are not just here to talk, you know.
But this is what the guy convinced them, because they were disappointed how they were treated before, and they told them that I was involved and it's not going to be like that. So I mean, everything we do depends on how the government, you know, handles it. But what I'm saying to you is, we're going to address the issues. We're going to make the recommendation and let them know we are serious in it. Now, I mean, I have another team that's further up into Toko that still has to get around to having the discussion with you yet. So I'm trying to arrange that because a lot of them were in such a remote area that they didn't have the luxury. You know, things went bad with them because the previous government killed any opportunity that they were trying to produce, and by not addressing the simple basic things that you are that can be handled. So we do have quite a bit of other people to connect with you yet. So I did mention something about you. I mean, I know you met with the corporation, but I had a conversation with other people at the corporation, which I told them I want you know, to introduce you. So we're going to move forward with some couple of Zoom meetings, you know, discussing the issues on that. But yes, you know, definitely, you know, we don't expect everything to be done in the first term. I know we're going to try to get the best we can done in the first term of our government, so that the people are convinced that we're on the job, you know, that we didn't promise them. I mean, it's my objective to make sure that we deliver something substantial that they could see where we're on our way. You know, if it was just a lady foundation, we could put the building later on, but I want the foundation laid, you know, that there's some kind of physical evidence showing, now, listen, we're addressing the issues. And if we go in to create that mass food production, there are people who are eagerly willing, as you know, and you met them, you know, and so I want to get in that direction, you know, also as quick as possible.
Okay. Dr. Maharaj asked a question, and I think we didn't forget you, Dr. Maharaj, but I'll try to explain the question and the answer for you as best as I can.
Okay.
What happened, as you know, you put the U.S. stock market last week, Friday, China decided to sell $75 billion of U.S. debt. Today, Canada followed up with $35 billion of debt as well. You add that up, it's putting severe pressure into the U.S. economy. In fact, the U.S. economy is still shut down in Washington, as far as I know. Plus the uncertainty what Trump is bringing to the market, to the geopolitical scene around the world. It has forged new alliances. The new alliances are forming. For example, by slapping on the 100% duties on India, India said, get the hell out. I'm not going to trade with you anymore. India should allegiance with Russia and China and make that Eastern Bloc stronger. And that has Trump in such a serious bind that apparently he threatening all the other countries as well. He's threatened Brazil, he's threatened Mexico, and Canada as well, because Canada did not buy the F-35 planes for the defense. It went and bought Swedish Gripen fighter jets, and he was totally pissed off at that. So bit by bit, the whole American economy, and that's why you said you are expecting recession over the next year or so. That's quite true. I feel the same way because of the geopolitical implications. And being Trinidad has to be, mindful of that as well.
Well, I mean, Suman, the way I look at it, India has made a serious commitment to us, and they have already started delivering on that commitment. India can help us with the agriculture, they can help us with the medical, they're helping us with a lot of infrastructural things, and they're going to do so, giving us some funding. So, so definitely, we are not limited or restricted to the United States as we used to be. In the sense that we have some opportunity with trading with India, so we're not totally dependent on the United States. We have other trading partners, and we have our motherland standing up with us there, where we got a serious commitment from Mr. Narendra Modi. And I mean, so I wouldn't say all is lost. We have some
lost. In fact, India is the only country in the world that is projecting 7.8% growth this year.
India has reached a point where, they have the technology, they have all the things. They might not have all the money, but they are progressing so drastically because they have their act together. And, India has just shown them that, listen, we can move on,
At the beginning of last week, they donated the limbs, the Jaipur limbs here in Trinidad. So,
so we're not back to the days when we had to be hanging with our hands and tongue hanging out, dependent on the United States. We're in a better position.
I share with concern that meaning the government should have a team to monitor and liaise with the Indian government to identify how best we can use that $300 million US in aid to, for development of the country. And I think that should also be a low-hanging fruit which we can fully exploit.
Can somebody explain this to Joyce? She's joining us. I forget which country she's, somewhere overseas. Welcome, Joyce Jasmat. She's asking about, can anyone explain what they meant? The minister said retirees with private pension won't be taxed. And what about teachers who are retired? Well, Sumant, you are a retired teacher.
No, that's in 1975.
So we would have to get more clarification on that. Vade will probably look into that and try to get...
No, I could give my interpretation. Well, you have the government pension, NIS and so on, but you also have private pension that you could have contributed over the years. Get it tax-free. Actually, some of the banks have those programs in place. You invest a certain amount during your working life, and that money is not taxed. It's not taxed. And at the time of cashing in, or you could continue annuity. At the time of cashing in, you pay tax on a certain amount. And in this case, what I understand the Prime Minister is saying is that there'll be no tax attached to those private pension funds. So, in other words, it's a big benefit to those individual citizens who have saved up money via a private pension fund. Now they'll be relieved to know that there'll be no tax at the end when they are collecting. So that's a big benefit.
Yeah, and George is saying that about teachers also, that will cover them also. That's
no. It would not cover teachers because teachers get, their pension is tied to the taxation system. Gratuity and pensions are taxed for teachers. that is not private pension. That is not a classification of annuity. Really, I guess we were talking more like private pensions whereby people would purchase and make that investment.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yes. So,
but at the time of entering such a scheme, if I may say, is that you get approval from Inland Revenue to
yes.
engage in that. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's regulated, but what I understand, it's at the end of the maturity period, or when you could cash in or whatever, a certain amount, and you could roll over the remainder into an annuity, into perpetuity. That is till death, right?
Yeah.
I think those are taxable at certain points of withdrawal.
So Joyce has another question. Would Inland Revenue take the 25%?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. If it's taxable, if it's tax exempt, then there'll be no 25%. But I would suggest that she get professional advice on it. But this is my interpretation. Otherwise, the Prime Minister would not, or the Minister of Finance would not have mentioned it.
So Joyce, hopefully one day you could join us on the program. We'd like to hear your voice. So anybody else, we're open to, that. So, gentlemen, anything else you want to cover at this point?
Yeah, I just wanted
to say.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead, Ned, because I have something for you also. Go ahead.
Thanks again. Thanks again for the opportunity, and I look forward to many more conversations with you guys.
Yeah, Ken, don't leave us yet. Ken, don't leave us yet.
No, I'm here still.
You remember in our last conversation, I suggested we need to map out what is the shortest route to access the funding from the Indian government. We need to do that, right? So we need to know if a project is identified, and I think Ken has really sort of put something on the table that a project could be identified in the number of machinery, etc., required, whether water pumps or whatever, right? Whether technical advice as well. So that is a project.
We have a big infrastructure project that Ken is working on for the Chaguanas West constituency, and we, remember we had talked about, Dr. Ramrup and I were talked about building a causeway along the Gulf going into the Chaguaramas area. Also interconnecting. So one of the recommendations I made was interconnecting with the Butler Highway from the Gulf when we do that, but also to develop around the bird sanctuary area there. We will create park and rides, and there will be a bus station there. We will create the parking. We will do a loop around the sanctuary.
Right. So that's a transportation problem. I was talking about the flooding problem.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying, while we're dealing with that, we are also simultaneously in planning to deal with the flooding issue, because how we handle that area, we're going to redirect how the water flow in. That's part of the plan of the action. So while we're doing that,
the point I'm making is that if you could identify what kinds of machinery and so on you need, and I think that could be packaged as a request to the Indian government to say this is what we need in terms of funding, not necessarily dollars, but definitely in terms of machinery and equipment.
Well, I mean, them large pump house that you create, you would have to create some kind of a pump house kind of an area. Can you want to elaborate more on that?
So we have to assess the flow velocities, right? Our infrastructure, our conveyance system, our rivers and streams cannot handle the kind of rainfall, the intensity that we've been dealing with lately, right? So we have to store upstream, and we are going to be doing something called river routing. So,
exactly,
as Gary mentioned, mass storage, right? So we're going to be designing and taking this in steps. Now, I mentioned a holistic approach, right? That's more or less like a long-term design solutions, more heavy in infrastructure. But there's some smaller stuff that we can do, small, short, high-impact solutions, such as the backflow, right? I could identify multiple projects right away and scale designs, and we could package that as a short-term, high-impact solution for someone to protect some of the farm areas. coupled with pump stations. But yeah, we could look at it from a short-term and long-term solutions, and we could start to package and propose.
Yeah, so Ken, what I'm suggesting, you ring fence it in terms of your geographic area, right? What area you want to see, and your short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions. Now, don't forget, India is very advanced in terms of flood mitigation, in terms of in terms of water management, and so on. Even as we speak, Afghanistan is perhaps dredging the longest man-made river to divert water and so on. So I'm saying they might be able to provide the advisory services as well in terms of um, needs assessment and perhaps the best structure. In other words, if you get India involved in the project as early as possible, they'll probably be committed to sending in the machinery and equipment and so on. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that my feeling is if we are not aggressive in trying to get that 300 million as soon as possible, Jaipur NIMS is not going to cut it. That's a very small percentage.
Yeah,
in fact.
totally agree. So one of the things I shared with Ken, what I was thinking about, and he agrees with what I'm saying, is that we control the flow from uphill. Before it reaches down to the Caroni River, right? That's some of the things that we have to do.
Correct.
Also, make sure that the desilting doesn't end up back in the river when the rain come and flood. You say you clean the river, but you don't put it in a way that it does not go right back in the river. So we don't want that also. So we want to create that kind of a structure where you prevent it from going back by putting it in a location and barricading it in a way, how you stockpile, whether it's rocks or whatever you try to do, but you don't want that stuff going back into the river, when the first rainfall.
Yeah.
So Ken will come up with all that kind of strategy. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, definitely, Gary. But again, we're talking about massive infrastructure here, 100-year storm. And let me just back up 1 second here. So how are we going to look at this? We're going to look at a map of Trinidad, not by Caroni, St. George, St. Joseph Falls. We're going to look at the map as a delineated drainage map. So we're going to have the Caroni River Basin, right? The Oroput River Basin, all the different river basins. And all of these different catchments, we're going to address them uniquely. Now, they might be different in terms of their hydraulic paths and stuff, but a lot of them drain into some of the main rivers. And the issue is, as Gary mentioned, we're going to have to do some river routing, right? And that entails massive storage upstream to start with. And that is going to be part of the long-term solution. So we could do something like that. We could take a drainage area, right? Study it and design that storage and propose that to the Indian government and say, hey, this is what we have here. This is what we need. Mass storage, river routing, and we need $100 million US, right, to address one of our drainage areas. And that, in turn, will help save the farmlands lower downstream and the other communities from a 100-year storm. And the philosophy and the approach will be, we are going to convey the 25-year storm and store, we're going to convey the 100-year storm and store the 25. But, you guys mentioned that the Indians have the technology and stuff. I did work for the Dutch. I worked for a company called Akidas out of the Netherlands. And I worked for the US operations. We did a lot of heavy infrastructure in the US. So I have some first world experience. I met with some of the Dutch technical people in Trinidad when I did a presentation in Port of Spain. And they were inquiring about some of my designs. I own 10 industrial designs. It's all intellectual property, and it's protected by the Intellectual Property Act.
Yeah, nice, lovely,
Excellent.
So we still have to get to the stage of creating water dams, and like me and Dr. Rambrook was talking here about converting the holding capacity areas, like how we have it in the US as a lake, and the people could go and do some recreational thing. So there's a multi-purpose, multifaceted agenda that we have. We're not saying all of this will be done within the first 5-year term, but we're going to structure it going forward. So we're putting everything in place. We will get as much as we can and allowed to get based on the funding and the approval, but we're making the recommendation. We're giving them from A to Z
and Ken and I agree on that, doing that. So we're giving them the A to Z, and it's up to how the government implements.
Mhm.
And most of the development in Florida is along those lines, Gary.
Yeah, the concept is you have to store.
Yes.
So, yeah. So if you're going to develop a piece of property, right, you have to not discharge 75. You have to be able to discharge 75%. You cannot impact the downstream. There's no direct discharge like what we do back home. Everybody's is just discharging directly into the storm drains, right? No one is storing water in their compound. No development is storing water. We don't see lakes and stuff there. Like in Florida, I live in Florida here. We have lakefront properties. So they will have a detention pond, right, and build homes around it, and they call that a lakefront piece of property, and it sells for premium. So we have to get creative, right, and we have to incorporate these designs as part of the landscape and see how best we can use it to optimize. Fresh water moving forward is going to be a challenge. So we could talk to WASA and see how we could now use that, how WASA could use that water, that stored water, as far as strategic reserves, during droughted conditions.
Yeah, some water, please.
Also, that may require some legislation, because it is my understanding in Trinidad that WASA owns all the water resources.
It's great, yes, that I heard that, and I think we need to take a relook at that policy and that law, whatever it is, because if WASA owns the water, I mean, if you say they own the water, then they own all the problems also, right? But it is foolish to say, hey, let's discharge directly and we can't store. You should allow a man to store at least 2,000 gallons, of water, and he could use that to wash down his yard, flush toilets and stuff, wash his car and stuff. Why use potable water, drinking water, when you could use rainwater, right? And also, what it does, it's a means to store on your compound, so it reduces the impact downstream.
But South Trinidad with the undulating lands. I mean, I have some lands. It's so easy to dredge the valley and put up a dam on almost every valley that will provide water during the dry season for farming and so on. So that program ought to be started as well.
Definitely, you could. But what I would recommend is how you dredge that, right? You dredge, but you use a liner, right? Use a
exactly.
liner.
Yes.
So, and then you have certain areas which are where you could have silt traps, where you could pump out your silt and you could manage that water properly. But yeah, it is doable. It's not rocket science.
The liner, the liner, you'll want it like in Barbados and so on. But
certainly,
with heavy clay, you don't need it. So, but if it's cheap, so these are small, low-cost solution to our problem of dry season and wet season.
Right. Correct. But we have to study the storms, the frequency of these storms,
and
understand the fluid velocities that we're dealing with, right? The hydraulic part, your time of concentrations, and that's more specific to all of these different drainage areas. But again, we have to think about the farmers. They need us right now, and we have to deliver for them, because once the local food or locally grown food is being flooded out, right? We're going to see farmers moving out of farming and they're going to be doing something else. They're going to say, hey, you know what, this is a waste of time. Because every year the government is saying they're going to help us and do something here, and it is not working. And we're just wasting time planting this and planting that, waiting on a subsidy, on a handout, right? How does that impact the overall population? Food inflation. You don't want to be going to the market during Diwali season and people eating the vegetables and stuff and have to pay double the price because there's a shortage, or you have to import now. So I think it's very, very important that we address this flooding problem, right? And we also have to think about our strategic freshwater reserves, which is important, because down the road that fresh water is going to be a challenge also.
Well, you have your work cut out. But you're working closely with the ministries as well, or
I work closely with Gary, and I
with
brief him on
Gary?
what we're doing. As he mentioned, we have a big chat group, and all of the ministers and everyone is there. Everyone's
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
We had some one-on-one last about 2 weeks ago with Shogunas West MP, and he's more concerned with the traffic congestion and stuff there, because I mean traffic in Central is horrible, right? And there's some easy fixes. So we're looking at that also. But my
But
area is to focus. Yeah, go ahead.
the traffic problem is that too many persons go into town to do nothing. That's our problem. And the question of diversification on Sean should be such a high priority that you form industry, you decentralize industries.
Definitely. That also is an option to look at, right? Not have everybody converge to Port of Spain to get to file for a bird paper or something like that, or file for a passport to get a driver license or something. You know,
Mhm.
You guys hear me now?
you could move these
Yes, Gary.
offices
Okay.
and have a government center, as Gary mentioned, and this is I'm taking his words here. Build a government center in Toco Sandy Grande. Build one in Central.
Yeah.
And have
So
all different.
what I suggested was a multi-purpose government building, right? Where you have representatives from the ministry, various ministries, and we have the parking to accommodate that, and you have the access way to that. So what we're looking at doing is decentralization, eliminating everything to Port of Spain kind of thing. And the Prime Minister said that herself, she's not going to be working out of Port of Spain all the time. She could work anywhere out of the country she
Mhm.
wants to. And so decentralization is part of the idea. And also we want to do some rerouting. But yes, I mean, there's so much to do for Toco Sandy Grande. There's the port idea that I want to see built. It's not a PNM idea. It was something I was suggesting a long time. Then I see them came up with it. But that port, the inter-island connection, where the tourists, not everybody has to go through Port of Spain. There's so many tourism in Toco Sandy Grande with the turtle watching and the other things that we can do around that area. So I want to make sure that, because the objective is to create revenue for the people that lives in that area in Toco Sandy Grande. So we want to use what resources they have there. And this is what I had suggested the Prime Minister, and I'm just kind of executing what I thought should be done, and it's up to how much we can fund it, but the objective also here is not to totally depend on government funding. I think I mentioned this, but that we can use the resources there to generate its own form of funding. So we might need some little help with the approvals of the government, but we also want to use the resources there to start to generate some revenue, create jobs from what they have there. So I mean, where do you understand where I'm coming from also? And you guys, we discussed this kind of idea before.
No,
So
obviously.
we want to capitalize on it, and we will offer the assistance as the infrastructure design from Ken. I just throw the idea to him, and he tell me what he thinks and where we can go with it. But so there's a shift. I mean, same thing I talk about for like areas like down Point Fortin, Ikakas area. I mean, just imagine you had to get up 3 o'clock in the morning to go to Port of Spain. How many taxis you had to take to get there?
Mhm.
Or going to San Fernando is it's really difficult. I had one young lady that she's a teacher. They sent her all the way to St. Madeline to work. I mean, how many taxis does she have to take? So while we have to deal with the infrastructure issue, the transportation issues, we have a lot of work to do. But also decentralization,
Mhm.
Definitely decentralization and also design. We spoke about a
Right.
beltway. In the United States here we have a beltway. For example, a major highway like let's say the 95 would come into the 295 as a city, and that 295 will take you around. So you don't have to now traverse through the city. So
295, when you get to Maryland, you get the 895.
correct.
Only in Maryland
So yeah.
and
So for example,
London.
Sandy Grande, right? We can do a beltway around Sandy Grande and connect back to the major highways. The same thing with Chaguanas, right? We could do something similar to in areas like such, where you don't have to come into the local and mingle with the local traffic, right, or impact the local traffic. So you have a beltway around it, you're in and out if you're going to a specific part of the town, right? You don't need to be traversing through the local traffic there and creating and compounding on the problem. So these are a design, some of the designs that we could propose, right, to make things much more efficient, much more effective, much more user-friendly, right? And I think in the long run, it would definitely enhance the area, the geographical area. If you could start building highways and roadways and make it places more accessible, I think it's going to create an attraction. People can now leave Central and be up in Toco Sangre Grande in half an hour, right? I could go turtle watching up in North there.
We have to work on that Toco main road and make it more safe, more accessible. There's room to develop there, so we will have to work on that eventually too.
And Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that road is going to connect to Manzilla, the proposed Manzilla roadway or something.
I think so. We have to look into it.
Because
but you know that highway where you went and look at how it's badly designed, it's unsafe. I mean, we recently saw a car run into that guardrail because how it's narrowed down into from 3-lane into 2-lane or whatever it is. So it's unsafe.
Yeah, and what Gary mentioned in there is the horizontal curve, right? Those curves are designed for a certain speed, and even the guardrail, a light vehicle, I think it's a little Nissan or something, just cleared away a whole section of that guardrail.
We saw a second one. There's a pickup truck that ran into it too, the same way.
A pickup truck, and then there's a small little Nissan. The thing actually leveled the entire guardrail as though it was like foil paper. So I printed the spec and I sent it to the minister and I sent it to highways and a bunch of people. And I said, hey, we have to look at this guardrail. Does that fit the AASHTO spec, right? And I would like to look at the design. I would like to look at the critique the design to see if it was supposed to be super elevated, right? And the contractor cut corners there, because again, I don't want to get too political here. Coming to election, people try to run down the design and road and fix and do it halfway, right? If there's an issue with it and there's a safety issue, we need to address that to ensure the public is safe. So, Gary, I reached out to the director of highways, and she gave me her email. So I'm going to be sending her an email and requesting those approved drawings. And once I start to do some calculations, then I'll tell you guys what the findings are.
Well, good that the communication is flowing on that.
Then also there's an issue with the drainage. The people in the Borough Corporation, I think the deputy chair mentioned to me that the entire drainage is routed straight into the Toco, the Sangre Grande town center storm drains there. So all of that flow.
I heard something like that. With that culvert was designed in there.
So we also have to investigate that. So there are a lot of things that we have to do here, and a lot of fixes. But first, we need to understand the problem in order to come up with a solution.
So there's quite a bit of things that me and Ken working on behind the scenes.
A lot of work.
Infrastructural things that we have going on, and Ved and Sumant, and Dr. Maraj will come in on the economical part of things. I did add Dr. Maraj to that mission team over there to keep him in the loop of things. So we have quite a bit of infrastructure thing. But like I said, mentioned Ved, when we do that project, we are also going to include dealing with the flooding issue along that area and how we could utilize the swamp area to accommodate. And also even upstream, that's why we're working with Sangre Grande also. So we control that flow coming down to the Caroni River. We will have to deal with the Caroni River issue and create, we'll make recommendation for Wasta holding, area and dam and, how we can, whatever the government can afford, we will try to do. But it is more feasible, and this is where India could probably help us too. But we will come up with the recommendation. We got to tell India what we want. I mean, their engineer will want to maybe add something to it, or how the thing goes. Everybody want to put they might have a better idea, or they might want to work with our idea, how it goes. But Ken has all these design ideas, and it's just a matter of expanding where it needs to be expanded on that model that he has. But definitely floodgates is needed. Definitely we have to control the flow of the water. We have to redirect the flow of the water. We have to create the holding capacities. And Sandy Grande, for example, has a lot of area that we can dredge and work and deal with that holding capacity and redirect water. Now we come down to the central area, Chaguanas West. I mean, the swamp area is there. We could adjust to prevent the flooding from backing up into the residential area. But how we redesign that addition that we put in, we're going to address the flooding at the same time with the traffic redirection. So reconnecting if we get approval for the causeway going from the Chaguanas Meadow down to what is that? I forgot the name of the area.
You mentioned
Petersfield. Where we run the
Petersfield.
Yeah, you pick up the highway from there, and you go up on the Gulf around straight into the water park where they have a Shagaramas there, so you could take that ramp and go up straight into there. And you have an exit to City Gate. You connect on the Beatum. But what I asked Ken is to design the exit so we're not stopping to block up the traffic. So you wrap around and you flow straight into the traffic. There's no stop. You understand? Yeah. So he understand what I recommended, and so we don't want when you come to the exit, you stop. You want a crossover. You wrap around and you go whatever direction there without stopping. They're just merging.
Yeah, definitely. Any transportation design, we have to do a simulation of it. And Gary, I think I sent you an example of a simulation. A 3D animation where you simulate.
I think you sent me two.
Yeah. So we would get the design capacity, and then we'll simulate that, and then we start to manipulate the simulation or the model by mimicking a vehicle breakdown on the right lane to see how it affects the backup at the entrance, etc. Right. So these things has to be thoroughly vetted. Right. We just can't go and design something here. Right. We have to understand and we have to collect good data to see what we're designing for in terms of the capacity during peak hours, off-peak hours, etc. But these are also massive projects. And we did mention...
Like with the Charlieville area there, we're going to create a loop around so you don't back up, the traffic doesn't back up, especially our event in Naga. We had to work with that traffic study too.
Definitely.
Going up higher up, where is that plaza? I forget the name of the place.
Brentwood?
After Brentwood, there's a plaza up on the side there, on the right side there. I forget the name of it.
Heartland?
I can't remember what it was. Anyway, yeah. But anyway, I went to that strip mall up there. I forget the name of it.
That's Heartland Plaza. By Sugram Trace or something there. Sugram Street or something there.
Yeah, but after past Sugram Trace, going higher up towards like
Sun Plaza?
Going by Bamboo there on the right side there. I forget the name of the plaza, man. By Nestles up there's a name of a place. I have to look it up. But anyway. Valpark, I think it's Valpark up there somewhere there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But Ken, let me just make a suggestion. To ease the traffic as well. Could a waterway be built in from not Londonville, from Charlieville? A waterway coming into Woodford Lodge. So the Woodford Lodge area, they already road there. Wondering if I'm saying the right
we also there's a plan. Also part of the plan I forgot to mention is a ferry route from Port of Spain coming down that Gulf.
Right.
So that could work into what you recommend in there.
And coming to Chaguanas by Woodford Lodge.
Yeah. That comes to the Petersfield area itself.
Yeah. So we have to look at the costs. Costs. I mean, we could design and build anything, but at the end of the day, we are bounded or we are limited based on budgets and costs. Right. When I went to Google Earth, I pulled some lines here, and the shortest alignment that I got was from Petersfield, in almost to the extreme, to the mangrove there, right, to where the Gulf of Paria is. So the cost to develop that and build a ferry port there, a taxi terminal there, that'll be cost effective. Then we can now move the traffic away from the core of Central, not have traffic traversing through Central, right? We propose some additional roads wrapping around Felicity and coming up to Guayma and catching back the highway, right? So this way you don't have to impact the local traffic in Central. Because let's say we have 1,000 persons or 1,000 people driving towards that ferry terminal every morning during peak hours. That's additional 1,000 vehicles during peak hours. So we have to upgrade the infrastructure to facilitate all the traffic flow. Then once you build a ferry, it's going to brighten up the entire area. You're going to make it much more attractive. So in addition to your commuters, you're going to have other people coming down to shop, and so forth, right? And it's going to spark development. So
the tourism part. So we loop in everything in one. We're not thinking like the PNM. You know how we operate.
Yes, not fragmented. It has to work together and it has to tie in, and we can do it in phases. But right now, we want to also address
the fisherman port, the industrial port. I also mentioned about the industrial port that eventually, but we want to deal directly with that interconnection first. The tourism, around the sanctuary, the wraparound, and then we'll get to that if we get approval. But we're recommending it. Ken will do all of that.
Yeah. So and we also mentioned 2 overpass, right? Right now, there's just one. There's 2 overpass, Mon Road flyover, and what you call that thing, Price Plaza, and those are single lane each way, right? Single lane each way, right? So we need to upgrade those 2 overpass, right? And we need to add 2 more. And I would want to propose one like around by Sugrim Trace there where the Diwali Nagar is, because you have a lot of cars converging to that area now. It's gotten developed over the past decade. And I mean, if you pass on a Friday evening or Saturday evening there around 7, 8 o'clock, it's like a gridlock is like Manhattan traffic. So you would want to study that, and I would want to propose 2 additional overpass. One lower down as you're leaving, like where Brentwood is, as you pass through Warner's flyover to Brentwood to the end there, where you could come over in Factory Road to Woodford Lodge in the back there, right? If I want to go to Londonville from Felicity, that should take me only 10 minutes. Not close to half an hour. And the concept of a beltway around that entire central region there would definitely enhance and eliminate that traffic congestion problem. So with the infrastructure proposal, we have to do some upgrades, because you cannot just go and build something there without upgrading the infrastructure and understanding the flow, the capacity, meaning the amount of vehicles, or the new design capacity, or the new amount of vehicles that are going to be on those roads. So it's going to overwhelm the local roads, and it's going to create a nightmare for the locals there. So we have to think about the impacts also, and that'll be part of the overall feasibility.
So, the Minister of Finance said that he was opening the doors to encourage diaspora involvement. Well, we're already involved. We're fully engaged. Right, gentlemen? We are already involved, fully engaged. So, yes, so we do want to encourage that, definitely. But I do want to mention that we must capitalize on the technology that we have today, where we can engage before we even reach Trinidad or without being in Trinidad. And we could start work via technology, making our contribution to helping Trinidad and Tobago, utilizing the technology. I don't think we have really utilized it. We have not really capitalized on the technology we have in getting things done. I mean, so I want to encourage, you don't have to wait to get in Trinidad, get on board, with the technology and do like what we're doing. Join our team, form your own team. It doesn't matter, but do get involved, and you don't have to wait. To be in Trinidad. We could start from now. So this is what I want to encourage.
Yeah. What is also required, and I think there'll be high demand for it in many parts of the world. India, I seeing it being done in America, retirement homes, so that let's say Trinidadians living abroad, after a certain age they want to come back home, that they come back into a first world, first class community that they feel at home with in terms of facilities and amenities, but they're back into Trinidad to enjoy I would say the last few years
in a safe
supply,
way, in a safe way, because we need to provide that safety and security.
and safety and security and whatever transport and things to move around and good health facilities and so on as well. So I think there's a big demand for that. So
Well, I've seen a few
Trinidad,
developments taking place.
yeah,
So hopefully
we have them
can,
here in Florida. It's called the 55 and above community.
yeah, exactly.
In order to buy into that community, you need to be 55 years plus. Like the villages,
Okay.
our place called the villages.
Excellent,
So that's
excellent.
like a big city by itself. They have everything, their own healthcare stores, gym, everything. And
Everything.
you have to be 55 and above to buy into that community.
Right.
Yes.
So
A lot in Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. But it is there's room for improvement. I always like to say there's you could improve on anything. There's always room for improvement.
that is true.
yeah, the thing about it is we have to hold government, because a lot of people came down, was motivated when Basti Pandey won the government, and they started their rush home, and then they had to run for their life from Trinidad based on and sell everything and whatever investment they made, and a lot of people had to flee. Some people couldn't, but I mean, you come back home all excited, thinking, well, we on our way, and then the PNM comes and destroy everything, and and put your life in danger. So I would encourage our citizens overseas to tread carefully in how they proceed in that direction. Utilize the technology before you run down home, and you could invest, involve, engage, just like how we're doing, and take it in stride. Don't rush into it, because we want to make sure that we hold government. And because we don't want the return of the PNM to come and destroy, just like what they did in the last 10 years also, come on and destroy everything. We are on a worse stage now than when we first took government in 2010. So we have a worse situation to deal with, and then they jeopardize everybody's lives. So we want, the objective is, number one, we are here to support our government, to make sure our government succeed. We want to make sure our government holds government. And so, but I do encourage you to engage, like I say, you want to join our team, you want to form your own team, please do something.
Okay, great. It's
Right?
is it past 10?
Yeah. So, anything going during the week? Is there anything else you would like to add during the week? Let me know. Take your time, review that budget statement, and gentlemen, so you can. Anybody wants to add thing, we'll come back on and discuss it. Right. So, Ken, you and I'll be in touch. Guys, we'll be in touch.
Thanks a lot, guys. Good night. Good night, everyone. Take care.
Yeah, good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
All right, good night, all.
Om Jai Jagdish Hare, Swami Jai Jagdish Hare, Bhakt Janon ke sankat.
So before I leave, I just want to remind everyone on the Diwali celebration that we are having in Toco Sangre Grande area coming up this week, 16th and the 17th. That's Thursday and Friday, to invite everyone and to come out and enjoy yourself. With that, I would say good night. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.